Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Sunday night hanging, well, right here on Sundays, because it's easier than changing the name. Sure. Go with that. I'm Ben. Welcome. And if you're here for the first time, please subscribe. And if you're returning, welcome back. Tonight, I'm hanging with, well, the man's got a taste for gear. You may notice, folks. We got Michael Toren in the house here, who I have known from the inner Googles that everyone's like, you don't know Michael? You don't know Michael? I'm like, I don't know Michael. Now I'm getting to know Michael. Welcome, Michael Toren.
Thank you for having me. And there's a lot of Michaels, so it does get kind of difficult, honestly.
It can be. But that's a good thing. Yeah, we got a bunch of folks here in the chat. I see a lot of the usual suspects: Hobo Rohde, Ferd Burfel, Devin Cinderwitz, Symmetry, Paul McNary, Ryan Hall. Let's see here, Charles 75N. Great show earlier today. Herb of Fireside Studio, Gear Junkie, Guitar Man 45, Nick KB Music, Frank Keeley, some guy named Michael Toren. Nope, don't know. BC Rick 581, unfucking believable, perfect. Bonkers, Bill and Hallmark. I'm gonna say many others. Patty Dill, Dave Chase, RJ the Mad One. Nice. So if you have any questions for either of us, put some question marks at the front, tag us, stand out with a super chat. There's the birthday boy, Absolute Mayhem, in the house. Happy birthday, brother. Mr. Anderson 59. Nice. Billy Baloney.
Oh, very cool. Actually, I think it's Devin who has a White Falcon, Billy Duffy White Falcon. And yes, I still have it. It's over there in the case. I'm actually looking out for the black 1 of 50 Billy Duffy White Falcon. Because it looks really cool.
Yeah.
But
not a black penguin, a black White Falcon. Yeah.
Well, a silver falcon, I think is what they call it. But he made one, and it's on the list, and but being a limited run, that is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's kind of a unicorn.
Actually, Eddie, I've gotten to the size where I can turn them all on, but I can't play a chord, and the house will go dark. It's getting there. I need to actually do some electrical work in order to support that. And it happened actually when I did the racks. I fired up all the racks just to see for a picture, so all of them would be lit up.
Sure.
And yeah, half my room went dark. It was
right.
The good news is all the amps in the back are on a separate circuit, so
Very nice.
It is quite. Although it is funny, I don't know if you guys have seen it. I did a video where I started the rack and all of them turned. All the lights came on, everything turned on. And at the end, I spliced in some like apocalypse movie where basically everything goes dark, something blows up, and then like half the continent goes dark as it goes across the country. just to play on that, because it is that's the first thing people say is, number one, do you own your own power company or at least a reactor in the back, or you've got to have a crazy electrical bill.
Exactly. He has a solar farm out back, folks.
A solar farm. Well, today would be a fun day in the solar farm. For sure.
If it stayed in the yard, because it would either blow away or generate about 10% normal. What's up, John DeShane?
John.
Joe has a question. Michael, thoughts about impulse responses, raw or mixed ready? Thank you.
Ooh. I really haven't stepped my toe into that one. I played around a little bit where I'll go. I think I downloaded a bunch of ones from Slash, and I think Michael Nielsen's gave me a bunch too. I honestly am more of a analog guy in a lot of different ways. So basically, what even the stuff that I do, I mic the cabs and I run it through there, because one thing I love the sound sometimes of digital stuff, but it's not always what you're going to experience. Though, if you take my word for a preamp or something or a power amp and say, "Hey, yeah, that sounds great," well, I want it to be as real sounding as possible, so I mic a cab and do it that way. But it's I've never got into the habit of putting it into the DAW and then in the DAW go choose under like torpedo wall of sound and go in there and just add.
Right.
The only time I've really played with it other than the wall of sound is I have an aux box. And I've gone in there, I've kind of done different cabinets and chip lane route mics. But the one thing that I kind of enjoy is the volume and the vibration in the room. And I don't really get that out of monitors. And that's kind of the issue I have.
Right.
It's like listening to a stereo and you don't get that feedback. You don't get that feeling out of it. But I mean, it saves your ears at least, right? I mean, that's the one good thing. And it doesn't piss off your neighbors. That's the other part too. So it's
there is that. What's up, Gary? Slow blackjack guitar. Yeah, I'm analog whenever possible myself, and you say it's still got. I don't know. They don't have a plug-in for everybody, and like we were saying off air, I got kind of boutique tastes now, and even when like the track that we played for the intro there, that's the LPD 87 into a rack preamp, and then into a DAW from there.
Which preamp?
It's a UA. It's got 4 channels, 4 needles. I remember.
Oh, like a mic pre, maybe, or something like that. Or? Yeah, okay. Yeah, you said rack, and my ears picked up, and I'm like,
yeah. It was, it's mounted in a rack, console thing. We used a different one this time. Another one he needed more oomph for his SM7 mic, I guess. But I'm like, well, let's plug a guitar into it. And he's like, all right, what do you want? And I'm like, nope, we'll just use my pedals into that and bring up a virtual cab. It doesn't matter. I'll get my flavor here and work. Something based on a Neve. I'm just like, yeah, that works. Said the magic word, Neve.
Somebody said the magic word SansAmp. Best simulator out there. Fight him. I'm like,
yeah, fight me.
Qualify that. Which SansAmp are we talking about? Because I'm particular. So
this is true.
If you're talking about version 1, no, not even close. Although I gotta give it some due. Some of the bass stuff they've made is pretty cool. So I have to admit. Mm-hmm. But on the guitar side, I haven't been a big fan of the SansAmp.
There's a legend himself, Simon Hosford. What's up, boss?
Hey, Simon. Oh, the goodness in the background. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of goodness in the background. So I'm giving you a little.
Army of 45 would probably be. I was going to say he's got a lot of gear himself because he's been acquiring gear the last few years, and now he's building a studio to put all that gear into.
There's kind of like a fishbowl effect. I joke about this. Is your gear collection only grows to as large as you can store. Mm-hmm. So if your studio is a 10 by 12, you're going to pack that thing as far as you can. You're not really going to go much further comfort levels. You get a much bigger room, and then you fill the whole thing. When I first moved into this room from a much smaller space, I thought, oh, it's so much space, I'll never fill this place. And then now I'm trying to find creative places to put it. So it's like the goldfish. The goldfish only gets as big as the bowl. The bowl gets bigger, goldfish gets bigger.
Nice. We've got a super chat from John Shane. Thanks, John. He says, Mr. Toren, ADA MP1 or the Marshall preamp? Forgot the name.
The JMP one, probably. Well, there's actually a couple. There's the JMP one, which is the one that is most popular, the gold colored one. Right. And then, where is it? It's up in the rack already. I have the other one, which is the 9000. And that Marshall 9000 kind of went with there was a black preamp and it had a companion 9005 power amp.
Okay.
JMP1 is much better. That Marshall 9000 needs some work. It's pretty dark. But to answer your question, Marshall JMP1. I'm like in the minority though, because like everybody that I talk to that in the rack YouTube world loves the 80 MP1, and it's not my jam. It is so not my jam. It sounds good and it does a thing. And if you are a White Lion like Michael Wagner guy, it is your thing. I'm a JMP1 guy.
Nice. I see a couple guys, BC Rich and Jim Cox gifted some channel memberships. Look at you guys. All right.
Oh, Charles has got a good question. Yeah, how do you even begin to decide what to pick up and what to plug into? That is a very real problem. I had an idea for a video where I would just walk in. I might actually do it. Just to ruin it for everybody that's in the chat. If you actually want to watch my videos, where I'd walk in, grab a guitar, and then stand in front of the rack for like 30 minutes, just trying to choose what to And then I would cut to, all right, now what effects rack do I want to do, or what effects do I want to do? And then, I do like the SpongeBob thing, and an hour later, or
1 hour later.
Yeah, that would be
Need
hilarious.
like 5 o'clock shadows filling in.
Oh,
There's
yeah,
different like the sun shadows moving across the room.
Actually, this is a really dark room, but that's a great idea. But yeah, no, it's and I creature of habit. I end up playing 90% through the same stuff. I've got some stuff that I really like the sound of, and when I turn it on, that's usually where I go, unless I'm looking for something specific. So if I wanted something that that nails, and I got to use something that's very, very specific. Like if I wanted an AC30 Vox tone, there's only a handful of preamps that can do it.
Right.
So I'd be like, all right, that one. So that's kind of. And then when it goes to effects units, my default right now, and I've said this for actually a couple months now, is Chandler made a single unit echo delay, and it's up in the rack, and that is the delay I use whenever I turn everything on.
Nice.
Although somebody in one of the chats was telling me that it is actually a pedal that they took, they took the board that was being used in the pedal and they put it in a rack unit, added a power supply, and then sold it as a rack unit. and I haven't opened it up to confirm that, but that is a pretty awesome thing if it's true.
John DeShane says, just get an AC30. Well.
63 AC30.
Yeah, he got the AC30.
And I got matchless HC, and then I've got RSA 23 right there. And actually, the sleeper of them all is, you can't see it because the couch is right here, but on the other side of the couch is the 50th anniversary combo. It's actually fully mahogany. They made it out of a mahogany cabinet, no Tolex, so they just stain the mahogany. And it's got an EF86 channel, and it's got a 12AX7 channel, and that thing is insanely good.
Nice.
And it's like they're all great sounding amps, and they're just little tweaks, nudges here and there. But what's really surprising, and it'll end up going, but before I go, I got to do a comparison, is the very top is a AC30 CC2 head, which is $500, $600, kind of, right? Really nails the AC sound, but when you compare it against the real thing, is where it kind of falls apart a little bit. It does the top end pretty well, but it doesn't have the girth or the mid range or the low end that the other ones do. So if you didn't ABM, you wouldn't know. But if you ABM, you're like, all right, well, this has got to go. And then yeah.
All right. Nick KB's asked a couple of times. He's like, does Michael work in the music industry? Is he in a band?
I retired a long time ago after playing clubs, and then become a professional in a completely different industry. My wife actually busts me on this all the time. She's like, all this gear, and you're not even in the industry anymore. What are you doing with all this stuff? No, I'm not really. No, this is all basically, I'm a collector at best. I'll say it that way. And I just love. I'm a gearhead from the very beginning. I mean, when I got out of college, or when I got out of high school, I went to junior college to learn electronics so that I could build stuff. And this was early '90s. There was no school. Egnator hadn't put his school out yet, so there's no school. So I went and played around for a bit, and then found an industry that I got into. I just fell into that. I just ran with from there on out. And actually, I didn't even have nearly as much stuff, probably 8 years ago. But that's when I got on YouTube and started researching, and then that monster exposed me to all kinds of stuff.
Right.
And yeah, that just lit the gas, lit it on fire. And I'm buying this. Okay, I'm buying that, and I want to see what that sounds like. There's no videos of this, so I'm buying that.
And you're in the area of the world where you can find a lot of that stuff too.
Well, yeah, that's one of the greatest things ever is LA. I mean, it's all, the Southern California, it's all there. Like I went to was it during my first NAMM weekend out there, I also went to the Orange County Guitar Show. Oh wow.
And
all right, cool.
I'm thinking, it's literally, I wonder if I'll see one of these pedals. And the first booth, the guy had 6 of them in a row. I'm like, all right. And then everyone's like, the place got picked clean. Bonamassa and Norm were here yesterday and they picked the place clean. And I'm like, I'm from small town Ontario, Canada. No. you don't see like a 53 Les Paul. You just don't see those, you know.
Yeah. I take that for granted, and I do travel for work, and that's one of the things I do is I go in there and I go, all right, what's the local Craigslist look like? And then most markets other than say Austin, New York, and LA, not Austin, sorry, Nashville, New York, and LA are maybe 4 or 5 pages deep at best.
Right.
LA, you're going 3,000 posts. And that's just like a week and a half, maybe. I mean, it's right. Pretty. Now, there's a lot of the same stuff, but I would say you probably, if you can't find it in either one of those 3 markets, you're looking at some really rare stuff.
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. But no, this was one good place. Plus, I mean, all the studios that are here, when they started going under, they were blowing out, or when they started changing from analog to digital, it's blowing all the outboard gear out. And there was a time when you could get a lot of really cool stuff for cheap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't need these actual preamps. We'll get virtual ones. No.
Yeah.
No, you can still go into a DAW eventually. Keep it analog as long as possible in the chain.
Yeah, Devin, I still have the White Falcon. Yeah, it's sitting in a case. Yeah, there's
Guitar Man 45 was asking, he says, how close is Michael to me? Well, you're outside of Detroit, Bo, and he's in LA, so far.
Far. Yeah, that is far.
Randy Price mentions Atlanta and Athens used to be a good market for gear, but it's dropped off over the last 15 years, I bet.
Yeah, imagine.
Simon Hosfer says, speaking of Michael Nielsen, Michael did a great job. Yeah, that came out yesterday. Lawrence's LPD 74 Deluxe.
Yeah, that was a great video.
Yeah, which I was like, I don't have that one. I had a 74 and I regret getting rid of it. So, yeah, it's on my list. Although, I do have some LPD stuff coming out myself. One likely on Tuesday, and another one next month. But if folks are actually, I'm allowed to mention it. That's right, the trade embargo. If you want a boost that's based off of power tube saturation and distortion, the power, it's coming out this coming week. You can pre-order one. Info at lpdpedals.com. Retails for $129.95. I don't know, $99. I don't know. So say $130. So
I wonder how he does that.
I don't know.
It's SAG. It's like it's SAG on the power amp, and if you're doing it from the front end, that's got to be really interesting.
I used it into what I was using it to the Blues Deluxe and into stereo, into the Marshall as well, but the Blues Deluxe Explorer, because it's got so much headroom that this thing, when I was cranking it, it was getting shrill to the point of, it's like when you run a PA power amp too hard into a speaker, and it's got that very shrill, farty poppiness to the speaker. I'm like, wow, that's mimicking like an overloaded PA system. I'm like, that's impressive. I'm like, how do you do that in a pedal? So, but into an edge of breakup amp, it's just magic.
Oh wow. Yeah. That's the sad thing, is I'm not really a pedal guy. I've got probably a dozen pedals up on a shelf, and I rarely ever use them. Although it makes me wonder what I'm missing, honestly, because there is a crap ton of pedals out there.
That's a whole other rabbit hole. Yeah, you look at Josh Scott, the room with those shelves and shelves and.
Oh my God, it's If I've gotten this crazy with amps and rack gear, I just don't even want to know what it would be if I went and just jumped into that pond. That would just be. Because
no company just makes one,
Yeah, I know. What I have done is I've searched out stuff I can't find in the rack world, like. I don't think there's a good. I have to do the deep dive one of these days, but I don't think there's a good roto rack unit.
Right.
But I have the Hughes and Kettner. What was it called? They made a pedal rack, not pedal, a pedal roto unit that was tube driven. It was a big chrome thing, and that was like the only thing that could really do it. So I ended up getting one of those. So that's that, and you can't do a wah. Well, you can do a wah, I guess. I've never been able to find a used rack wah. But that would be another one that would be.
That made sense to me. Like I saw like the rig run down to Kurt Hammett. It's got the 6 inputs. I'm like, well, that makes sense. They play on a large round stage. Yeah. You could have expression pedals around the place. Perfect. Makes sense to me. That made sense. But then I was like, other people, I'm like, that's just lazy. If you have one wah out on stage, just use an actual wah. And the Rotosphere. Yeah, Tom would know.
Yep.
He's got a lot of rack gear himself. He's been going crazy this year.
Actually, Michael Kraus got it first. He was Rotosphere. Wow. Oh man. That was cool. And then Unfucking Believable.
I was waiting, and then John Duchesne says the H90 does most of that stuff.
I haven't gone there yet. I've got this guy, so which I never use. So there is that. But Unfucking Believable asked the question of how do I mic the cabs. I actually I've got a 57 and a 121 that I've got over there on the cab, and it's got one of those cool clips that was made by is it Royer that made it, or basically it puts the 121 vertical and the 57 horizontal like right close together in one clip, so that they're always in phase and they're always in the right position.
It's the same clip. I think I heard him talking about one of those.
I forget where I saw it first, but I bought one, and then what was really cool is Michael Nielsen came over to go through some gear, and I showed it to him, and I said, "Tell me you got one of these." He goes, "No, I don't have one of those." So the last birthday, I ended up buying one and giving him one because it's such a cool piece of gear. It makes it one stand, two mics, and puts everything perfectly in line. So it's a great thing to have. Yeah.
See, Happy Ghost Gang, Ben Thompson in the house. Good to see my good buddy Ben in here.
It goes back to the. Sorry.
Beato uses it. Maybe that's where I heard it was. Rick Beato had mentioned it in one of his interviews.
Yeah, the Royer axe mount. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. It goes back to the fact that I don't like using IRs.
And Tom has one as well. Of course Tom has one. What am I thinking? Of course Tom has one.
Wow. I got to start asking Ben Tom what kind of gear he's got, because I'll bet
he's got a lot of gear. Yeah, he's heavily into Metropolis. He loves Metropolis amps.
Oh wow! All right.
He does have an OG Marshall of some kind. Like, I don't know if it's 60. I know he regrets getting rid of a 68. He says, but then he's got something very old as well. And fun fact, he went to college with RJ Ronquillo.
Yeah, I saw that. I heard that. Yeah, I saw that on a show. So actually,
that's how we keep RJ honest, because I'm like, hey, I got Tom's number.
So that's a 69, and that's a 73. So the 69 is 3 months away from being an actual plexi, but same circuit completely. So it's like the poor man's plexi. You're not paying the plexi tax when you buy something like that. It's got a, well, these days with the gear prices, it really doesn't matter. It's still insane, but it's not as insane as if it had a plexi front. But same exact circuit.
So Tom says a 71 super lead. Oh, there we are.
Ah, nice. You know what's crazy is they all have different levels of gain. So my 69 actually has the lowest level of gain. It's not as hairy as my 73. And then Mike brought over his 72, which had even more gain. So it's weird. You different super leads. It may be just the components they had that day. It could be what tubes you're running. I mean, they all kind of sound a little bit different. The crazy thing is, finding one that hasn't been modded is hard.
Right.
Because I remember going from the 90s and the 80s, man, everybody was hacking them up and doing
different mods at different times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Devin asks your favorite Telecaster.
Oh my God. An actual or a Telecaster shaped object?
I'll go for either.
Either? Okay.
I like both.
I'm going to say my favorite, actually, if you want to see it, I think we'll grab it. I'll be right back.
Sure. What's up, Cousin Doug? Down and Back Cornhole Podcast.
So this is my favorite Telecaster shaped object.
Ooh.
So basically roasted neck, roasted body, but I put Filtertrons in it. So it's a Cabernita, and then it's volume. There's no tone. So I blend the pickup. So basically what I default to is the back's wide open, and then the front I crack back until I can get rid of the woofiness out of the neck pickup. So I get a little more body, but I don't get too much of the overbleed. But yeah, if you were to ask me what my jam is, I'm a Filtertron Vox variant guy. So that Billy Duffy guitar, awesome. Mm-hmm. That thing, Filtertrons, same thing. Yeah, I love it.
I get it.
Although the surprising one is I built a couple with gold foils, and gold foils are actually a pretty cool pickup.
I do love Filtertrons, unbelievable if they're built correctly and they're not all dark. Gretsch is getting better at their cheaper pickups. That's what I'm just saying. They're getting better. They're much brighter than they used to be.
Actually, I don't think I played any of
by
the
then here in the chat. He did a Les Paul Jr. and he's like, "What kind of pickup should I put in?" I said, "Filtertron." So he did. What's up, Tony?
Eddie's got a good question there. He's trying to, or I guess a statement and a question.
Yeah.
How I have everything set up is all my racks and even the amp wall there is at least 2 feet away from the wall. So I can get back there and reroute cables and do things that I need to do. But everything really runs through the 3 amp Pete's right there. So all of the amps go through the amp Pete, and then the rack is amp Pete channel 1. So the feed coming out of the rack goes back there, and then from there it goes in. They go into the power station up the top, and that's where I got my effects loop that I run all my effects through, and then from there it goes to the cabs. So it's quite a setup, honestly. Quite a setup.
Billy Baloney was asking which Filtertron pickups were those.
Those are Seymour Duncan, I think Powertrons, which I was surprised. Those are really, really nice. And they're not super crazy expensive. The other Filtertrons I like are the ones that Lawler makes. What are they called? Shoot. Well, they're Lawlertrons. What am I thinking? It's his name. So actually, one of my favorite non-Tele guitars is a 335 with Lawlertrons in it. It's the Chris Cornell version. I have a first run. Yep. I have the black one, which that's another awesome guitar. The problem is I can't play too much on that one because it's in really good condition, and for the prices those things go, it's got to that level of, all right, it is now a collector's museum piece, and I really don't want to destroy this thing. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, lots of good info here. Hey, Michael Pansy, good to see you. Nice.
Actually, Ben, Tom, what switch are you using? I'm curious. I've got the amp Pete's in the back, and I'm in the process of upgrading on the rack away from. I have an Ampeg system selector that a couple of those I bought, and then I've gone KHE on the rack side, mainly because I'm taking all these different power amps, going into one feed, hitting back to the amp wall.
Right. He said, okay, he's got the Amp Pete 88S.
Yeah. That's what those are.
And the 3 RMJ 12 loop switchers.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, all of
he's got this going all for his house too. I don't know what he doesn't have it confined to one room so far. I don't know what he's got going on. And a lot of it is teal. He's got a lot of teal cabinets, is what I'm saying.
Oh, wow. Johnny Love is asking a question about high watts. He's got a 200 watt early 2000 custom.
Nice.
Man, I actually have one on the way that's supposed to be here tomorrow. In fact, it is in 1972 custom 100 that I am hoping delivers the goods. And in fact, I've got a high watt cab over in the corner with Banes in it that I'm waiting for that amp for, just so I can get that sound. Mm-hmm. And again, another YouTube influence thing. Watching Malcontents, watching Fryette talk about high watts, and I'm like, all right, I need to get a high watt because I got to experience the high watt thing. And lo and behold, high watt is going to be riding tomorrow.
Right. I know. I was going to ask preferred speaker in your cabs. Do you have a preferred speaker?
It's funny. I've been locked into the Celestion side of things for so long that the Fane was the first. Well, the Fane was the first real jump outside of that wheelhouse. Mm-hmm. I have a couple of EVs actually. I have some of the 12LMs, but if I were to say my favorite speaker is probably either an Alnico Blue or a vintage Blackback or grayback or whatever it was from the mid 70s you can find. Those would be my two favorite speakers.
I was going to say Tom's falling in love with you more because he was showing off literally some creambacks and blackbacks yesterday.
Oh God, yeah. Each one of these cabinets I have in the background have a different complement. So I've got Fanes in one. I've got a 90s Recto cab that has the V30s allegedly. Below I've got V30s and blackbacks in a kind of a two combo type of 212 cab type of situation. And then Marshall's got some 30th anniversaries with Nico Golds, I think. Oh, I have it all down in a spreadsheet, but it goes through the whole gambit. I've got a bunch of different stuff. I've got creambacks in the top hat cab. I've got and then you can get even crazy with the greenbacks because they had 55 hertz and 75 hertz greenbacks, and yeah, it gets a little nutty. And
what's going on? We got Butt Cheeks in here. We got Ryan in here. RJ was asking if you have a PV JSX.
Ooh, I actually do not. But for a brief second, I had a Butcher. Okay. And it was a brief second. It wasn't a bad amp, just wasn't my deal. I've got kind of a what would it be? I have kind of like a PTSD situation with PV. My first amp was a PV amp, and it was a really crappy amp. And ever since then, I've been no to the PV.
I get it.
But I've heard great things about the JSX though. That's the Satriani amp, right?
Yeah.
I've heard great things.
I grew up with this was PV country because it was all country in the 80s, and my dad played country music growing up. And you'd show up, and it's just a backline of just PV logos, and they do these showcase shows with half a dozen bands, and there's got to be 15, 20 PV combo amps up on stage. And it's like, wow, okay. It's just solid state, bright, clean. I'm like, yep, that's all the clean.
This PV Classics really looked cool with the tweed. That always caught my eye.
That's true. I got one in black, an OG back there. That's mid 70s, nice. I want to say, because it's got the square magnets on the speakers. So,
yeah, like way back, yeah.
Like, which way do you turn it on, left or right? I'm like, depends on if you get shocked through your guitar.
Oh wow. Actually, I missed one back there. Unfucking believable. I'm using Cali 3-ways. Is it the Independence? I'm trying to remember. But the 8-inch ones. And they're pretty good. I've really enjoyed them.
So Christopher,
and they're not super expensive.
Unbelievable says Friedman still won't agree to mod my PV Rage. I would like, what would you do to a Rage? What can you do? And would it sound better if it wasn't going through a 6-inch speaker or whatever it was, or an 8 or whatever it was? It was small. I remember
that. I don't know anything about the Rage. Honestly,
that was kind of our first amps for a lot of us growing up. It's a little tiny. If you want to talk lunchbox amps, it was literally the size of a lunchbox, basically. 8 watts, 12 watts, solid state, with all the gain in the overdrive channel that you'd ever want. That classic PV solid state. Yeah, bad. Just bad.
Actually, the one amp that I had after that, that I don't even remember how it sounded, was I had a Marshall Lead 12 solid state 12-inch combo. Mm-hmm. And I remember not even liking it that much. And then for a brief second, Michael Nielsen got one, did a video about it, and then somebody else did a video about it. And I'm like, wait a minute. It was really that good?
Yeah, like it was like the Lead 12 or something like that.
Yeah, it was Lead 12. Yeah.
I think it's the preamp side of that's the same as the MOSFET 100 or something like that.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, I knew it wasn't a tube.
The same preamp circuit for everything.
Freeman modded my pick nose for $3,000.
Old PVs were built very well. Yes, Squire Telecaster, I agree.
Yeah, I have to agree with that too. Oh no.
Oh, there it is.
There it is. We've crossed that threshold.
Yeah. Do cables matter? Yes. I think they do.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with that as well. Depending on, especially as longer cable runs you do, it definitely matters because you'll definitely lose some high end off of that.
Now, if you find you have too much high end, use a longer cable.
Yeah. Or buy one of those little gizmos. You got the switch that'll simulate how long of a cable you got, and then you're there.
There is that, yeah. Digital cables, sure.
Actually, I'm doing these days. That's me. Just to X-Vive, wireless unit,
Sure.
transmitter receiver. Because I mean, I could sit here and then I have this cable that runs across to the amp Pete over there, and it just gets messy. And honestly, I haven't found too much of a tone difference really between the two. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's when someone hooks up like an oscilloscope. See this frequency? No, don't care. It's 3% less. Don't even hear it. Don't even hear it.
Yeah. It's a question of how much does that 0.5% really matter to you? I mean, some people can hear it. I mean, I totally believe Eric Johnson can hear, the differences in 9-volt batteries. I can't do it. It's not me.
Yeah. Yeah. Good on you.
Bird, I've
Your
got
picks
two.
matter. Yes,
You got me
picks
by one.
matter very much, I would say.
Ah.
That's the biggest thing, attacking your strings. Guitar man for snakes. Oh, yeah, I got one over there, a 12-channel snake that I don't use.
I can at times feel the latency bent on. That's probably another reason why I'm not jumping on the digital bandwagon. But it's not bad. It doesn't really bother me too much. I just know it's there, and I can hear it every once in a while.
Eddie Faces asks, is everyone in your family a musician? Whose family, Eddie?
It's a good question. Ben, you want to go first, or you want me to go first?
My dad, yes. My mom, no. My sister will say yes, but no. I don't know. I like to be considered a musician. I think you got to get paid at some point. Even if it's a bar gig, as soon as you're paid, you're a professional. That's what my dad told me. As soon as you're paid, you're a professional. So
really, all right. Well, then for a brief moment, I was a professional musician. Although, to be honest, most of the clubs here were pay to play. The strip was you basically bought tickets and resold them. It's pretty ridiculous.
That's what it is around here. Yeah, thank you, LA, because LA started that, and it's now spread out everywhere.
That's why I loved. That's why. Well, there's the one club that you didn't have to do it was the Coconut Teaser at the end of the strip. That place was you got a percentage of the door, but I mean, it wouldn't even pay your bar bill.
I'd rather sell tickets. Yeah, I used to get that. We're getting a quarter of the door. Great.
Well, we would sell our tickets and give away our cassette tape demos. So back in those days, but that's the one good thing about the clubs here in the San Fernando Valley, just over the hill from Hollywood, was most of the clubs here didn't make you pay to play.
Right.
Although you didn't really get paid, but you were at least playing, and you didn't have to go over the hill to do it. So it was awesome. But yeah, no. So my family, the only other musician, like to use that as a definition, being paid to play, was my grandmother. She was a studio musician for Warner Brothers, and she was probably one of my influences of actually going into music. She was very musical. In fact, up until she died, she was still getting royalty checks from Warner Brothers. I'd open up the mailbox and there'd be, Warner Brothers, here's your 5 cents. Here you go. But yeah, that's about as musical as it got. And then I just kind of veered off in that direction. A lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, I got into gigging about 10 years ago, and I'm literally playing the same clubs my dad played in the 80s for the same money too.
Well, hey, at least inflation didn't hit you.
Yeah, I was just like, inflation, it can go up. You can pay us more,
Yeah.
But yeah, like the lower end bars were his upright, like 300 a night for the band. Okay.
Oh wow.
Sure. Playing 3 sets. And...
Yeah. Well, at least you still have venues. Like most of the places in the San Fernando Valley have closed down, so there's no real place to do it live. I mean, all the big clubs over the hill are still in place, but it's not the scene that it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So it's a different deal. I mean, I go down there and I'll see some shows every once in a while, and I'll get nostalgic and I'll be like, oh my God, I remember running down that stairs in the dark, trying to get on stage with a bass. But it's I can't imagine being a 18-year-old, 20-year-old right now trying to go and play live. I mean, I got to be unimaginable.
Yeah.
At least in LA. I still have hope for other parts of the world. Although I hear Austin's going kind of sideways. That basically a lot of the venues are now not really hiring bands. I was there with Justin from Two Notes, and we went around to a couple of clubs. And the first place we went to, which was off of 6th Street, it didn't have a band. We heard Journey, and we're like, oh, let's go check it out. And it was a guy on a keyboard with a drummer. And he would do all the parts on the keyboard, even the guitar solos, and he'd sing. And I was like, this is the most horrible thing ever. Right. Not on the musician. It's just the fact that I'm in Austin and I don't even have a band to watch.
Right.
Come on, people. Come on, club owner. Hire
it's like even now, like Broadway in Nashville, it's so much corporate owned that, it's, and though I don't know how people play there. Like those guys are playing like 4 hours straight without a set break. You got to go to the washroom. All right, well, you're playing without a bass player until they get back from the washroom. Like, it's insane.
Yeah, I mean, Randy's got a good point. I mean, it's, there's only so much money you're making, and then you got to split it with the live entertainment. And who knows? I don't know enough about the economics of owning a bar, so I don't know if they're making stupid money over the alcohol, or if they're just scraping by, and it's really, I can't give you a couple $100 to the band just to have them bring some people in. I know that's an interesting one. I just remember back in the day, there were promoters that would rent out like the whiskey for a night, and he'd have 5 or 6 bands he'd bring in, and he'd front the money, rent the place out, get his 5 bands in, give us all the tickets and make us buy the tickets to make his money back and then some, and then that's the way we had to roll for that time period.
Get some of that here, like in Kingston, which is a town about an hour down the highway, college town. Like I played there, and it was like, hey, do you want to open for Anvil? Yes, just as a resume builder. Hey, open for Anvil, and so we bought the tickets, we sold the tickets, and then we played. And but yeah, they basically the promoters rented out the venue for the night. So
yeah, I'm sure it's a very similar situation now. But
I remember a drummer who was still a teenager. He's like, "Do you think we can meet Anvil?" I'm like, "They're sitting at the table next to us. Go for it." Which told me right there, I'm like, there's no money in Canadian music.
What was the band? What was the band that you poked your head in the tour bus and said hi?
That was Skinner.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, they
were awesome
leaving. They played a pre-race show at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and then I turned around and left. And as they're leaving, half the band is in one like 11-seater van, half the band's in another. And one of the bands clipped a tow truck. So tour manager has to go out, and talk to the tow truck driver and probably pay him a couple $100 to not say anything. And so when he got out of the van, he left his window down, and everyone's filing out. And I'm like, oh, cool. What's up, Gary Rossington?
Yeah, I remember you did that story on another live show. I remember hearing that, and that was a great one.
Well, that was just simply from my cousin who was in the chat here. He went around and he was out front of the stage, and I didn't want to walk all the way around, so I cut through the fence. And it was one of those, all of a sudden you look up, I'm backstage, and there's Ricky Medlock's 58 Explorer staring at me. I'm like, holy crap on a cracker. I am not supposed to be here right now. But all right, let's see how we can parlay this.
That's when you went.
Yeah, well, honestly, I'm at a NASCAR race. I kind of stuck out with my long hair and sleeveless shirt and stuff, and all of a sudden they're like, are you with the band? I'm like, if you think I'm with the band, we'll go with that. And it was weird because before that, I was leaning on a truck outside the garage area, and all the teams are coming in on golf carts. They're like, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like, "Fine. I'm not a member of Leonard Skinner. Thank you for thinking that, though." But just look the part, play the part.
Yeah, Stephen Douglas is asking me the age-old question of if I can only have one preamp and one power amp. Although he did put the qualifier for the music I prefer, what would it be? Now, since you put the qualifier in there of the music I prefer, it would have to be my matchless preamp, the GPR1, and for a power amp, probably one of the Fryant power amps. So maybe like a 252 or something like that. Or if I wanted to get crazy and matchy, I'd go the VHD Classic, which is chrome, and then the GPR1 is also chrome. And then for bonus points, I do the Valverb, which is it's a tube optical trem and reverb with a real spring in it, which is also chrome. So I'd do the full chrome rack if I were to do that. That would be awesome, yeah. But that's what I would do.
Yeah, for the pretentious factor. I love it.
Yeah. I can see myself on stage, and
I went through a phase where I didn't want to have anything with black Tolex. So I played through my tweed amp, my guitar cases were tweed, my patch cables were tweed, everything was tweed. I'm like, no black.
Oh, man. Let me get caught up here.
This kid's sitting in front of a green screen, right? Nope.
No, it's all mine. I can walk back there and turn some stuff on if you want. I'm trying to get. Oh, PCM 42 or 2290. Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm gonna go PCM 42 actually.
Nice.
I don't get to do the cool spatial thing with the 2290 as often as it's basically, it's probably a better piece of equipment, but PCM 42 is
and
me.
do you have a favorite attenuator?
Oh, that's another good one. I'm gonna say I don't like the aux because that stepped attenuator portion really sucks. The torpedo reload at the very top is got one of the better attenuators because it's infinite and it sounds really good. Plus you get wall of sound and all those other cool things in the back. So I'd say from a pure attenuator standpoint, I would do the reload. Although I don't know they just came out with a new one. They discontinued them briefly, and I think, did they? Maybe not. Maybe I'd have to look it up. But find a reload if you're really into a really cool attenuator. Yeah, and then if you wanted the amp part of it, I would go with Power Station. That's a really good piece, and you could run that as a power amp too. You could take a preamp, go right into the Power Station, use it as a power amp. So it's pretty versatile.
I'll wait for Tom to type in. Yeah, the Fryant Power Station's the only thing you ever need. I think he's got several of them as well.
Yeah, they are.
Is he too is a Steve Fryant fanboy? See, I love the Power Station.
Oh, effects loop, man. That's the only way I'm getting an effects loop without hacking into these Marshalls. So it's a necessity. Well, he agrees on the PCM 42. Wow. Now I don't feel so bad because I feel like I was going against the grain. First I don't like the 80 AMP one. Now I went PCM 42. Yeah. Yeah, and it's cooler than the 41 because you got a little display that you can toggle and
right
and stuff. But yeah.
Michael Gross was asking if you had a Lexicon Vortex in there.
I do not. I don't even know what a Vortex is, which is probably an indictment as a rack gear guy. So
I'm not sure either.
I'm gonna have to look that up. Yeah, that's there's a couple of Lexicon units that I've been looking at. I had no idea. Is it Lexicon that made a flanger? I think they made a flanger, and I had no idea, which now I gotta go find a Lexicon flanger. Because I've got the MXR rack unit, I've got a DoD rack unit, which I found was really cool. And then I got the TC1210.
Boggles the mind, DoD and rack unit in one verbiage.
I've got
that bold DoD, you barely got the pedals down and you're going for rack units.
They are fragile. I'll say it that way. I have a DoD reverb unit, an RS-485, which I don't think many people know it exists, and it's all right. But I've had it sent in for repair 3 or 4 times the last year. Just I don't know, just because for some reason I really want it to still work rather than just recycle the thing.
Right.
But the DoD actually sounds pretty good, but I've never seen another one. So, I mean, it could be just another unicorn piece of gear that they made, and maybe I have a good one too. That's the other thing is you never know with all this vintage gear, whether you got a good example or you got something really crappy.
That's true. So Tom says the Vortex was the same, more affordable series like the MX400.
Oh, okay.
And then Bo, Guitar Man 45, says, I used a PCM 90 and a PCM 80 along with 2 TC Electronic GeForce Rocktron Prophecies run through 2 Marshall Super Leads 100s modded.
Oh God, that's gotta sound glorious.
Well, yeah, and he gigged in the 80s. Can you tell? That's an 80s rig right there.
Oh man. Although the Prophecy I thought came out a bit later, but yeah, that would do it. That would do it. Oh my God. Yeah, I've got an 80 and a 70. I don't have a 90 though. I haven't got the reverb unit. One of these days, maybe I'll grab a PCM 90.
Quentin James says, do I spy a diesel VH4?
You don't spy just any diesel VH4. That you know whose that is or was.
Yeah.
He's been a multiple time guest on this podcast, actually.
Yeah.
And it sounds it's incredible. The Muller just
I remember that was like the total half-hearted troll comment. Hey Tim, whatever happened to your diesel? He's like, I'm not sure. You're like, I have it. Oh, okay. Cool.
I really don't want. I didn't mean it as a troll thing. I wanted genuinely, I wanted to know why he got rid of it. I really did want to know. Right. I'm like, wait a minute, did I make a mistake here to buying one? Because I wanted one for a bit, and when his came up for sale, and I was like, wait a minute, and it's not for a crazy price with a celebrity tax on it. Oh, I'm buying this.
Right.
And I got it, and it sounds incredible. And that made me go even further. Why'd you sell this thing? So in 2 different live shows where he was on, I'm sitting there going, hey, why'd you sell this? But I feel bad because I got him start to thinking of. I planted the seed, and like the second one, he's like, maybe I shouldn't have sold that.
Yeah.
And then I added in the comments, hey, it's still in the valley. You can always visit anytime you want.
Yeah.
You're probably 30 minutes, 40 minutes tops from me. I mean, we could totally,
Yeah. And then he's like, who is this? Michael Toren. Oh, okay. All right. Got it. Yeah.
Oh, for Casty, no.
Right.
Yeah, Quentin James just did it. It's that Tim.
Yep. And then Unbelievable asks, Michael, Dumbles, hype or very special? Same question, Reclon.
Oh, you know what? I don't. Closest thing I have to a Klon is I bought one of those kits that Stumac made.
Right.
And it's still in a box. I haven't put it together, but again, I'm not really a pedal guy. I'm a guy who loves to tweak around with stuff or make stuff, but Klon is not my jam. But the Dumble thing is, if you look straight up here, that's a overdrive reverb from Wonderland Overdrive. Because I went down that rabbit hole, like many of us did in the last couple of years. And I think an actual Dumble is probably more specific to people. So getting a real one, expending, selling your house and then buying a real Dumble, it's probably going to be a very deflating experience because it's not going to be what you think it is. But the guys that are making the clones, I think, are making they're taking like the essence and then kind of making it more mass market, open to the stream.
Right.
It's a cool sound, honestly. I haven't unlocked what RJ does on his channel with this cool, because he made it sound incredible. I haven't got there yet. I'm still, but it tell you what, there's a learning curve. You can't just plug into this thing, turn things up, and go, hey, there it is, like you can with a super lead or with even like a VH4 or something like that. There's a lot of tweak going that you got to do to get, and it depends on what sound you really want. I mean, if it's the clean thing, you want the steel string singer thing. If it's the overdrive thing, you're going to want the ODS version. I got that, and I was for me, it was kind of a letdown. Not to say anything bad about the amp's build quality or anything like that. It wasn't quite what I expected. But again, I'm sure there's a learning curve, and I'm still kind of navigating that one. Honestly, to me, more dumbly is, see if I can move out of the way here, is what's below it. That Bad Cat is a Panther R. That to me is more what I picture a Dumble sound. It's very, the low end on that is ridiculous. It makes all the other amps just feel inadequate on the low end. I can't, with the amp switcher, go A, B, and go from one to another and not go, whoa, what happened to the sound? Now, that's not a good thing for anything other than people playing in a room by themselves, because you put that on stage and now you're stepping all over the bass player and the key guy, or, and you're
sure.
But it's a thing. It's a thing.
I will say, the only Dumble I've seen in person that I can recall was Dumble modded Super Reverb at Carter's. And I've been hanging out at Carter's for a while. And I thought I had a good rapport, Michael. Like, they were letting me try some cool stuff, right? And I thought, this is awesome. And I said, hey, is that a Dumble? They said, yeah. I'm like, can I try it? And he went, no. He just laughed. He went, no.
Not even try. That's,
not even try. Because I was like, okay. But they had it placed like near the entrance because it was NAMM week, and they just knew somebody like a Bonamasso will walk in, see it right then and there, and then boom, scoop it up. And Stephen Douglas, yes, Tim Pierce.
Yeah.
And then Unbelievable just has thoughts on Bad Cat amps. I'm really close to pulling the trigger on one or two. Seem to be doing good stuff.
I think the new stuff is really good. The stuff I hear out of Tim Pierce and some of the demos I've heard, it sounds really good.
Yeah.
So if it's one of those,
stuff, RJ, Michael Nielsen.
Yeah.
I haven't heard a bad demo.
Yeah, I would say you're probably going to be happy with one of those. But it's not the historic Bad Cat sound, because remember, Bad Cat is, the roots are really more AC 30-ish on that, and then they kind of morphed through their through their history, and now they're sounding completely different. Than that. Panther R does not sound like anything that they're out today. But it's a thing. I haven't gone there yet.
Right.
But there's going to be some tonal overlap, and that's one of the sad things is, there's only so much bandwidth. Like trying to think of a good analogy, because up there in the rack, what did I get recently? The Fryette. So I got a Fryette Deliverance right there, which I can make the Gytron and the Diesel next to it sound really close. Now that, and there's corner cases where you can make some unique sounds that you can only get out of that amp, but there's the whole, what's the diagram with the circles? There's Diesel, the Fryette. Yeah, there's a pretty good overlap there. There's some things you can't do on either end, but there is a pretty good overlap. So that's the other thing I got to think about is, I only have so much space. Do I really want to go and grab one more or something else? The High Watt was something I didn't have, and it's a different sound. So the orange right there is a 78 OR 120. That is the orange sound. That's why it's there. The 8030 above it isn't really the orange sound, but everybody loves those for some reason, and there's at least 3 or 4 videos from big people that have done demos of those things. And it makes a great sound. It's just not what you'd think is a traditional orange sound.
Right.
Yeah, Venn diagram. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I haven't gone to the Dr. Z's yet. That's another one that I eyeball.
Right.
Oh my God. Yeah,
Bo said he's never tried an orange. They do a thing. Oranges sound like oranges. So if you're into that sound, they definitely do it, and it's a thing. I didn't get it because I just found that that's what I didn't agree with the orange sound for my playing. But they definitely do a thing.
Actually, Steven, you should watch Leon's live stream with me. I actually talk about what I do for a living for a brief moment.
than what I've been doing for the last 20 years. Let's just say that these hands did not come naturally. Yeah. All you guys out there that are playing stringed instruments, don't become a grappler and don't compete on a high level.
Yeah.
You will get arthritis and it won't be fun.
This is true. And then Billy mentioned he could have got a Dumble in the early 80s for $1,500, but in the early 80s, that might as well have been $1 million.
Oh, man. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of amps that, like I was going through, if you guys remember, no, if anybody here is from the San Fernando Valley, there was a publication called, LA Weekly. And there would be ads for all the music stores that were in the Valley and over the hill in Hollywood and all the clubs. There'd be, and I got a bunch of, I kept them because my bands were all in them and I could go through them. And there were the classifieds, and in the classifieds, you could have bought what was it? It was something really cool. It was an old Marshall. It was probably in the 70s Marshall 100 watt for like $600. And I was like, oh my God. Now the crazy thing is right above that ad was a Bogner Fish for like $1,500, which even back then they were stupidly expensive.
Right.
But some of the other things, there were things you could buy that were vintage for pennies compared to what they're going for today. It's insane. And that's when things started. People started collecting back in the 80s and 90s. Can you imagine what you'd find early 80s, 70s? Oh my God.
I hate to
The
think
bursts. Like I remember walking into Norm's Rare Guitars back in 91 is when I bought my bass, my jazz bass. And I remember walking in there, and if I could remember, if I had a photographic memory and I could remember the prices and all the stuff, and this wasn't this wasn't the place you see today in the videos. This was the corner of two streets. It was Van Owen and Tampa, and it was a small, tiny place. It probably wasn't much bigger than this room that I'm in right now. It just was long, and it was just full of vintage gear. And it was like, just if I could, take some money and then travel back in time, run into that store and be like, Norm, I'll take that 65 Strad. I'll take that 50s Esquire. I want that. And then walk out with it all.
Yeah, because back before it was vintage gear, it was just old gear, used gear.
Yeah.
I remember, and it's funny, it's like, I remember growing up, it'd be like, you'd be embarrassed. It's like, I got a strap, but it's a Squire. It's not a Fender. Whereas my dad was embarrassed because his telly wasn't a pre-CBS and it was a CBS telly.
Oh,
I was like, I'm like, it's still a 60s telly. He goes, yeah, but it's not CBS, so who cares? It's not pre-CBS. I was like, all right, whatever. But that was the difference of generation. And him telling me, because he sent my cousin a bunch of gear in the early 80s. And I was like, okay. And, some of it's Sol State, some too, but he's like, yeah, and then 2 milk crates of pedals. I'm like, it was 1982. I'm like, those are all OG pedals that would all be worth so much money now. Money. And I'm like, milk crates? He's like, yeah, you know me. I was never into pedals. I always played direct.
Oh my God. I have one of those actually. I was going through when I really got the music bug back reignited and I started pulling all my gear out of storage. I had a milk crate that had pedals in it. And it had a late 60s box tone bender in it. Wow. That I didn't even think worked. Right. And I took it to a local repair guy, and it was a repair guy that really appreciated that kind of stuff. He's like, no, this is perfectly 100% functional. You should play this. Play this.
Sound like that.
And I made a clone of it, actually. I bought NOS parts from a guy in Italy, and I made a clone of it. And I got within 5% of it. But there was something it did in the mid-range that I just couldn't replicate. It was beautiful. So there's something to that. But that's been sitting in a milk crate in a garage for 20 plus years because I just put it away and never thought about it again. And I'm sure there's probably garages and attics across the country where there's still like gear sitting that no one knows about that are going to pop up one day. Yeah, it's insane. But yeah, Ben Tom, going back a little bit. This is actually from judo. I do BJJ too, but this is really a judo thing. This is about as straight as I can make this one.
Yeah, you're not doing the James Taylor finger picking.
No,
No, not doing that, and I'm not going to be a shredder ever.
What's up, Preston?
Catch up here.
John DeShane says he's enjoying the show tonight. Good. I'm glad you are. If you haven't already, folks, hit the thumbs up. Please subscribe and all that fun stuff.
Oh, Ben Tom sold the fish for $6,000. Oh man.
But yeah, no, he changed it. He saw one for $6,000. He's probably using voice to text.
I was gonna say I see him for 5 and change, and I just don't know if they're actually going for 5 and change, or if somebody's just kind of wishful thinking. Because I'm like, that's just insane. No. Unfucking believable. Synergy modules, yes. I have every iteration. I've got in a rack on top of in the rack, in the big rack, I've got the Egnator M4, which is the 4 module rack unit with Egnator modules, which are 2-channel. Concurrently in production was the Randall RM4, which is single channel. All the Randalls were single channel. I have 2 of those and a bunch of modules, both stock and modified from Salvation and the other guy that's closer to you, Jaded Faith. And then I've got a couple of Sin 2s, and I've got a bunch of those modules too. So
that'd be all of them, basically, folks.
Yeah, I don't have the Vendetta. That's one that I don't have, but that was kind of a small run, and I was corrected. I think it's one long unit you can pull out. It's 2 preamps. It's basically the module with one long face. So yeah, that's but I went down that rabbit hole, and that stuff is really good. In fact, the Randall Vox module I prefer over the Synergy, actually. The Morgan. The best matchless one I've seen so far is Evil Kitty that Salvation made. That thing is incredible. But it basically, you send Salvation Audio the module, and he mods him and sends it back to you. He's out over in Europe. It's a long boat. I'll say it that way. But actually, from the Marshall standpoint, his band is really incredible. And if you were to like, we had our tremor today. We had a 5.0 earthquake in addition to the tropical storm. And if everything had been wiped out and I had to start over, I'd go Synergy right off the bat, and I'd get a handful of modules and then build from there. Honestly. Sure. It's a really, I love the modularness about it, and then you've got SAG and you've got a bunch of controls you can do on it. It's really a cool system.
Yeah, Preston, he says he would like to get a Synergy amp and a few mods. Sure, I get it.
Stephen Douglas, I have not tried a Bartlett amp. I don't know. That's another deep dive one I got to do. One of the other ones that I kind of stumbled on from Troy from Leon and Todd's podcast was the Cornford amps. I haven't tried one of those, and those. Okay. When I started diving into there, that's another amp I want to get my hands on.
I know of it. Yeah.
Oh, Les Paul copies.
Bo says he has all the Synergy modules as well. They're very good. Nice. Yeah. Unbelievable. Now I need to invest in Bad Cat and Synergy. Yep.
Oh, there's so much gear. It's incredible. It's insane. I mean, it's the one good thing about it is I'm holding on to most of mine, so I'm not selling it in order to fund the next one. I'm filing it away in the library and then chasing the next piece and then putting, because that's the one thing that I realized. A lot of us, a lot of gear guys out there have owned stuff and then flipped it or sold it, and you're going off pure memory and now YouTube videos of how that thing really sounded. And that's one of the things in the back of my mind, other than a large earthquake toppling all this stuff, is, if I let it go, how do I really know if that new thing I bought, it really is better than the old thing, or am I missing anything once, do I have to buy it again and then bring it in?
Yeah. And as soon as you get rid of it, you're like, it does the thing, and I need the thing for the thing.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing. Oh my God. Devin is saying that the Vox Tone Bender's $1,300 and up. Holy crap.
Wow.
For a tone bender, which is like a 8-component, circuit board. I mean, although I do hear that the transistors are specific, that you gotta play around with them.
Somebody was asking why rack gear instead of pedals. Devin was asking.
That's a really good question. I could get away with a much smaller room if it was pedals, but I don't know. I couldn't really tell you why. I've always liked the rack, and I think it's kind of when it might go back to, and I'm just off the top of my head, I might be kind of just a product of the times, because I started playing clubs back in 89, 90. And that was primetime rack era, really.
Yep.
That 91, 92, 93, all the way up to late 90s. In fact, I had a rack. I had I actually started out life as a bass player. Well, I played guitar for like less than a year, and then I switched over to bass. So I still have my Gallien-Kruger 800 RB, which is what I gigged with all that time. And that sat in a rack with a wireless unit and a power conditioner. And I would bring that over with me, put it on top of the house cab, and then they'd run the DI out of the back of the Gallien-Kruger, and I'd go from there. And I always liked that form factor rather. I don't know why, but rather than heads or combos or whatever else. And that's probably where the thing kind of imprinted on me. And then looking at all that music at the time frame and seeing some of these guys loading these fridges, and I was just like, this is the coolest thing ever. Look at those lights.
That's how I always saw it. Like, I got into playing in 89, and I always saw pedals. Now, it was weird because like MXR was out of business, EHX was kind of out of business. So like pedals are kind of hard to find for one, but they always seem to be the poor man's version of the rack unit. Like, I got a Boss DD3 digital delay, but it's not the same as a rack delay. So it's just, and we didn't really have pedal boards. That was the weird thing. We didn't have pedal boards for the pedals. You'd show up with 4 loose pedals and you put them all together on the floor. And I remember that was one of the reasons I loved playing a Fender guitar, because the Fender case, I could put pedals down the sides of my Strat. I carry like 5 pedals in the case too. And I was like, oh, it's great. It weighs 25, 30 pounds now, but it's great. I can carry all my pedals along my guitar.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think at the time, that time, pedals, like you said, were kind of looked as being, the lack of a better term, the cheaper alternative to owning the racker units. And you didn't really have multi-effect pedals back then. They were all specific things. Whereas you started seeing all these multi-effect rack units. I think that's really, and I mean, it's a totally different game now. Now, the pedals are more powerful than the rack units now. But I think back then, that's probably what's the holdover, and the reason why I'm so into this gear is nostalgia and the fact that it's it just looks cool. But you're right. I mean,
pay like a Bradshaw or a Friedman to build you a control unit to control your rack system, so you're not over there having to hit individual buttons or whatever.
Billy, no Tone King amps either. I've been slowly kind of morphing my way over to the amp collection side of things, and I haven't got there. Honestly, or Ben Tom, I haven't done the Hoffman amps either. I mean, I've got the major food groups covered, and some of the well, actually no, not really into the newer stuff. I mean, I've got a couple of nailers up there. Got a top hat. I've got a Bogner Ecstasy that you can't see because I'm blocking it. Snakeskin for that cool 90s vibe, along with matching 412.
Hey,
actually, that's actually another thing too, is 412s versus 212s. I really like the sound of 412s. I prefer that over the 212. The problem is space.
Yep. Billy says, I don't see any Fender stuff.
Very move. Let me that's a guitars or amps. So
guitars I see.
If I crack you over, right below that Supro is my Super Reverb. So that's a 66 Super Reverb in a head shell, so that I can run it through the amp switcher and into the other cabs. So the Supro is actually a pretty cool remake too. I have that's a Statesman 50, which is a Thunderbolt and a what's the
What's the other preamp or what the amp they made? It's basically it's two different classic Super O amps preamp sections with the power amp section. I actually have a 66 Thunderbolt combo. It's under a cover and protected on the other side of the room. And I've always been wanting to go and AB them, and I haven't just got around to doing it. But it's a cool amp. That thing, the kiss of death on that one is no master volume. So any amp really, if you want widespread appeal and adoption, you need to do a master volume. So the amps that I've got that nobody's really raved about it because they're great amps is most people without a attenuator or a power station can't play it. So like that AC30 anniversary one that I was talking about earlier, no master volume either. So to get to that great sound, you've got to crank the snot out of it, but you can't be in the same room with it. Same thing with the Super Leads, the Statesman. I'm trying to think of who else doesn't have a master. The RSA 23, the divided by 13, no master volume. God, who else? I think everybody else has a master. But I mean, to get it to the right stage, you got to crank them all anyway. So yeah,
I get it. This also explains some of my hearing loss.
Yeah, no, that is real too.
Well, it was funny. I had a friend over earlier today, and we were talking about. I said he had just picked up a '90s solid state Princeton 65.
Oh wow!
And he wanted to try it out.
Okay.
I was like, yeah, that sounds great. I'm like, have you tried the Tone Master ones? He says, no. I'm like, they're not very loud. He's like, really? I said, yeah, because I was doing some demos at the store one day, and I cranked up to about just under 5, and it was clean through a Fender guitar. And then I plugged in something with hot pickups, and it was starting to break up. And I was like, wait a minute. And I was like, wow, anything past 5 is just saturation. So I end up diming the amp in the demo, and I realized I'm sitting next to a dimed Princeton. This should be loud. And he's like, did you have it on full power? And I was like, yes, that's the scary part. And I'm thinking, it's not that loud. Not that loud at all. But I think I'm just that deaf.
Well, I mean, remember, we were, I don't know, I've never had in-ears. I've never used them. Right now is the only time I've ever used them. Because back when I was playing in the 90s, they didn't exist. We were floor wedges, and they were cranking the snot out of everything. So
yeah, and that was and when I was gigging up until 2019 for bar bands, they never had a house sound guy, so we were always supplying our own PA. So we didn't want to run a bunch of cables, so we weren't miking amps or anything. It was just vocals to the PA, and the rest was stage volume. Everybody keep up with the drummer. And so however loud our drummer was, that's how loud we were on stage. And I remember, I think we had a decibel meter. It was like 115, 117 dB on stage one night. I'm like, this is loud. This is really loud.
Oh yeah. No, I remember driving home from the gigs and just having the ringing in your ears for like a day afterwards. And it was funny. I remember one of the fond memories is we drive across. We play in Hollywood, drive over the mountain range, go through the pass, get it down to the valley, and at the time, like later on when I became 21 and I could stay and play the later slots, we would go down to the valley and find some place where you could just hang out and have food. And the only place that was open was Denny's.
Right.
So you can imagine, we're all crowded around a table, like almost the only people in there at like 1 a.m. eating at Denny's.
Yeah. And then the waitress come over and say, can you keep down a bit? Because you realize, because we're all got your ears blown out, you're talking at full volume. So anyways, blah, blah. They're like, we don't need to hear your conversations, folks.
Yeah, you could not get away from that. Yeah.
What's up, Boner Jams? Good to see you, my friend.
Yeah.
I remember it's like, can I get more monitor? I'm like, no, if we put any more into the wedges, it'll just feedback. So it's like, no.
Oh, there's a couple questions. All right. So we kind of talked about the Dumble Esque. That's overdrive reverb from Wonderland Overdrive. And then Jimmy Ray had another one he asked. Top Hat. That's an Plexador, which I'm really not really digging, honestly. It's again, we talked about the Venn diagram and the overlap. I've got more amps that do better, cooler things. So that thing's probably gonna be where my high watt goes, is right there.
Nice.
Incidentally, that Top Hat was owned by what's his name? The guy that was the original guitar player for Buck Cherry.
Okay.
who's now a producer and does other things. That's another
And
cool
quite
thing
the
about
gear
being.
collector himself.
Yeah. So that's one of the cool things about being in LA is you get access to some of the gear because the guys that come off tour and they're going to clear out all their gear. There's probably 3 or 4 entities that basically grab the gear and then put it out on the Reverb or eBay or Craigslist or whatever, and you get access to some of that gear.
Yeah, because you're only going to want to use a head for so long before it becomes not as reliable. So it's like, all right, let's get, it's been traveled around so much that you're like, I don't know.
Well, that's the one thing about that Tim Pierce VH4 is I turn those knobs, man, and there's almost no friction anymore. I mean, it's like ice. It's just back and forth.
Right.
And I wonder how many more years do I, not that I'm going to go and gig with this thing, but how many more years do I have with this thing before I go down and have to go down the pot replacement rabbit hole?
Right.
It still sounds great. They're not scratchy at all, but they've been loved for years.
Yep.
4 years.
Well, I get it. Yeah, and like I say, the people are there, the gear's there in that part of the world. Like, I remember that, like, hanging out with my buddy JJ down in Orange County, and his son was taking drum lessons. And he's like, oh, yeah, you'd like his drum teacher. I'm like, oh, yeah. He goes, yeah, you're a fan. You know the band Fu Manchu? I'm like, yeah. Their drummer's my son's drum teacher. I'm like, what? I'm like, how? I was like, I love Fu Manchu. They're like one of my favorite stoner rock bands. They're like, are you kidding me? He'll say, yeah, I'll try to arrange a meetup. Okay.
Yeah, Devin got it. It's Keith Nelson. That's the guitar player and now producer. Yeah.
Right.
Oh man. No, but totally right. I mean, Grand Slam at Denny's is 2 a.m. food, and that's the staple. And that brings back memories. I don't go to Denny's anymore, but I've spent many a Denny night or morning, great early morning after shows. Oh man.
Then it's like, well, I suppose I should get home. The sun's about to come up. Perfect. But the plan, if the sun's up, then you can see getting your gear back inside.
Oh man. See. I think I'd have to believe John Shanks can outgear me. I would have to. That's the thing. I think I'm probably one of the more visible guys with gear because I like to share. I still got to believe that I don't have the craziest collection out there. I think there's people that probably just destroy me, but they're private guys that don't let people know that they've got the gear. I mean, some of those, like, if you ever watched the Gibson, what's the one they do? They go to the collection where they go in there.
Yes.
And you walk in there and Amato's got like crates.
Yeah, and they only touched 10% of his cases, right? Yeah, you think, wow, we just watched like an hour and a half of beautiful stuff, and he's like, he didn't even touch like, a fraction, just a small fraction, let alone how many amps and cabs and stage set. Like some of these bands, they got storage space and they got the backdrops from the stages and all that stuff, rigging and storage.
Yeah, no, it's
because they didn't realize when you went on tour. Oh, the label when they said you have a stage rigging, we didn't pay for it, and yeah, you own it. That's yours.
No, it's no. There's some. I was laughing at Metalworks. I didn't do the tour. I had them ship it, and I crossed my fingers for that AC30 because that AC30 was up in Vancouver Island.
Well, that's where he is. That's why he probably mentioned it. Yeah, he's on Vancouver Island.
Yeah, and I just went, please show up,
Right.
in good condition, and it made it no problem. I did get a new piece of gear that cratered. It was only 60 made. It's giant rack tube amp. It's actually I'm fixing it. I'm in the process of fixing it. I know you can't really see it. It's over the edge of the couch, but it is. It was a company that was in business for 90 days. I'm talking about a really short, lifespan. They pumped out 60 amps in 90 days, or almost 70. I've got number 42, and it is from 92 to 93, I think, is when they were in business. So it's a tube amp. It's like a JC made 100 tube amp with a big giant load resistor that then is reamped with a solid state power section. So you've got the tube preamp,
you got the tube power amp, and then you're loading it down and then reamping it. And then it's got two LFOs on it. It's got a bunch of effect processing. It looks like basically a 2290 front end with a tube back end with an amp and everything. And it's really cool. But yeah, that thing. It's what happened is UPS liked to do the Ace Ventura thing and play around with it. And when I opened it up, a whole like two opposite corners were crumpled in. The circuit board actually moved in the chassis, and with the power supply, you had a heatsink, and all the regulators basically got their legs ripped right off. So I found all the regulators on Mauser, and I bought them all. And then the other thing that happened was there's two jacks. The line out jacks, the 1/4 inch, also got sheared off the top of the second circuit board. So I am like, yeah, I'm doing some repair.
This is why I don't deal with that company, right, Michael Gross? Yep.
Oh, I do for my work. I actually prefer UPS over FedEx because FedEx is God, they're worse, honestly.
Okay, as long as it's domestic, that's all I'm saying.
Really? Oh, I do international FedEx, and I'm happy with them, but I've never happy with FedEx.
Ridiculous surcharges on the back end. Yeah.
Oh man. Oh, there we go. Devin's asking my funniest onstage story. I got two of them for you. I was we were playing, and I can't remember where we were playing, but we were playing mid-song. Drummer hits the cymbal. Cymbal comes over and cuts the guitar cord right in half.
Wow.
So like clean, because I mean they're somewhat sharp, just bam.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden half the volume drops, and it's just, the rest of us are kind of like, oh crap.
Yeah.
Let's just keep going. He runs around, grabs it. Luckily he had another cable, grabbed it, and then we finished the rest of the song, and
Wow.
And then I remember I think we were at the Roxy, and I'm standing there, and my bandmate is playing and singing, and two girls jump on stage and start dry humping him on stage. We're sitting there giggling because he's got to keep a straight face. He's got to sing and play with two girls grinding him. And I'm just like, wow. Which is, it's probably some people's dreams, but gotta.
This is why we join bands.
Tune the stuff out.
Yeah.
But and then that's the one thing is you couldn't do that. I don't know if you guys. Well, I'm trying to think. I might be like the Whiskey is my favorite place to play of all time. But the stage is so high. It's not like you're jumping on stage. I mean, it's every bit chest height for me, and I'm 6'2". Roxy, no, it's like maybe 3 feet tall.
Yeah, like a step off the floor, basically.
Yeah. So, people that aren't that tall can jump that, no problem. So yeah, it was, and I forget if stagehands had to like usher them off the stage. It was like one of those deals. I'm trying to remember, but yeah, it was. Those are the two that I can remember the most, actually. Yeah.
I remember for some reason we were gigging up in Toronto, which is about 100 miles each way. We had designated drivers for our two vehicles, and it was one of those, we showed up to play, and it was like in the middle of an industrial park at night that somebody was putting on a show, and we knew, they're like, oh yeah, you'll get half the door, but we knew we weren't going to get much in the way of money. So they had a cooler that they were selling beer out of for like $2 or $3 a beer. And I'm thinking, well, the clubs, it's like $7 a beer. So every time I drink a beer, I'm saving $4. And so by the time the second band went on stage out of the 4 bands, including us, the promoter said to someone, okay, I have to go get more beer because the headliners drank all the beer.
Oh my God.
And I said, how many cases did you bring? And they said 3. I said, well, yeah, that does us. We're country boys. They're like, clearly. And then the rest of the band said, well, you can take our portion of the door because this is just going to be a mess by the time you get it on stage. No, we're good. We're doing like redneck math. I can have 5 beers now, sober up enough by the time I get on stage. And oof, yeah, that was.
Oh man,
We drank all the beer that night. Oh, that's why we had DDs drive us home.
no man. Oh,
But yeah, it was interesting. I remember that.
oh my God. Stephen Douglas was talking about how the Shinedown. I saw a Shinedown not too long ago. Actually, broke his hand because he got too close to the drummer. Was hit by a stick. Oh my God. Oh, oh man.
I always loved playing in a place where the stage was so small, like you're standing in front of the drum kit and you can feel the kick drum on the back of your leg. Basically, you're like, okay, if he hits a crash, I'm going deaf. I need to move now.
Actually, yeah. Unfucking Believer was talking about the Viper Room stage. I never got to play the Viper Room. In fact, just recently they were talking about they were closing it down. But my wife was telling me that there's a show coming up, and I'm like, all right, well, hey, they survived at least. But I think the Viper Room, no, they were around when I was playing, but not as one place we just never made it to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There was it was funny. I think I stopped playing when the House of Blues came in on Hollywood.
Okay.
And then I got to see friends bands play there, but I never actually got to play there.
Nice. Well, we've done our allotted time here. Holy crap. How did that go?
Wow.
90 minutes. Just wow, great time.
I'm a talker. I apologize.
It happens.
I'm a talker.
It happens.
Yeah.
Well, we can definitely do one of these again because this has been a bunch of fun. I think everybody had fun that was viewing. So,
thank you for having me. Thank you guys for tuning in and asking questions and being part of it.
Yeah, it's great fun. I'll be back tomorrow night with Terry's 3Gs and Symmetry in the chat there doing Canucks with guitars. I'll be playing some tunes. I don't know what I'm playing yet. I should put together a set list one of these weeks. But play some stuff. Yep, part 2, Tom. All right, Tom's in. Tom, maybe we'll have Tom on as well.
Okay. Oh, there we go.
We'll talk about all the rack gear, Tom.
Three gear junkies all together. I love it.
Yeah. See how we go with that. So, yeah, hold the line here. And as always, folks, if you haven't already, please subscribe. Hit that thumbs up. We'll see you tomorrow. Hold those doors open. Let Tom in ahead of you in traffic. Awesome. And happy tone chasing. And, of course, don't litter. Just don't.